Hello YouTube, this is the gear selector on my S203, or the same as the W203, and it has failed 2 times on me. While driving in position D and then stopping and planning to reverse the car, I couldn't move the gear selector past neutral position into reverse, so it was kind of stuck in D or neutral. So let's open this gear selector mechanism and see what the trouble might be. I will start by reading any fault codes from the transmission control module, just in case there are any communications or sensor fault registered. But no fault code found, so it's probably just a mechanical fault. The gear selector is locked in the parked position, so you simply remove the coin holder and put a pen in the hole or a screwdriver, and then you can move the gear selector. This is good to know if you need to move the gear selector. You can watch one of my other videos on detail on how to do this. Now let's start by removing the first panel. You simply unclip at the front and then move it slightly forward and then lift it out. There are 2 small plastic clips on the front holding this panel, and just slide it up above the gear selector. There's a cable underneath and there's a lock for the gear shift knob. Okay, so got this thing off. Now if you lift this panel under the gear shifter, there's a screw. You need to loosen it like this. It's just a quarter turn, I think, and the whole thing pops up. There's also a socket here, connector. I need to loosen. No, it's locked. Okay, so there you go. So this panel is out. I can see a lot of dirt in the gear shifter. It appears that this foam has it's not good anymore, so it has entered the gear shifting mechanism. So maybe just a bit of cleaning will fix this. Next is the front storage compartment, held by 2 plastic clips, 1 on each side. So simply loosen the clips carefully with a screwdriver and it will pop out. Be careful not to break anything, it's brittle plastic. And the other clip. Attached to the storage unit is a cable and a light bulb. Just work the light bulb and the cable out of the storage unit. Now here's something interesting I noticed. When the gear shifter is all the way to the front in the park, I'm not supposed to be able to move it. Should be locked, and it's kind of, now it is locked. So if I use the emergency unlocking mechanism here, then I can move the shifter, remove the screwdriver, and Down here we can see this is that tiny black plastic thing there. That's what you're hitting with a screwdriver. So now it should be locked, and it's kind of not really locked, and there it was. Now it was locked. So there's something in here not moving properly, freely. You need to remove these plastic things, plastic covers, one on each side, because there are screws under the plastic cover. So just lift them out like this and then turn it, and just lift, and those are out. Now we need to remove the entire center console, and to do so we need to loosen two large screws. These are not to be removed, just loosened half a turn or so, and then there are two screws that need to be removed, two smaller screws. We open this compartment and we lift up the rug. There are two bolts down here. We need to open this compartment. We need to take this rubber out. This thing, just pull this out. It can be incredibly stuck, but it looks like this on the inside. There's a locking pin here, and now there are two plastic clips, one on each side, which just release like that, and you can push this backwards. Now you can see two more bolts, and you can disconnect this cable also. And on the front there is one more bolt. Now please note the connector for the additional power supply is L-shaped, so it should be disconnected sideways. The bolts securing the gear selector, they go all the way down to the underside of your car. So if there's any rust or corrosion, the bolts may not come loose easily. So just add a tiny amount of penetrant and work the bolts. Just loosen, tighten, and you'll be fine. So I use a magnet and pick up the screws, and as you can see, thread locker, and on the end a bit of rust, so that's probably why the reason for them, they were difficult to loosen. Now with all the screws and bolts out, you only need to make sure that the larger two screws in the front are loosened just about a half a turn, and then you can take out the center console and just move it out of the way. Just move it to the back seat, and you have excellent access to the gear selector module. Before we can take out the gear selector module, we need to disconnect the cable that goes all the way up to the ignition key. And it's just a matter of twisting the plastic lock, and the cable will pop out. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you can't release the key from the ignition, this is the cable that makes it all possible. So when you move the gear selector into park, it will push on that pin. You could just take out that cable and push it manually, and that will release the key. I lift this thing out now. Should I be able to pick it up? Yes. And underneath here there is a clip. You can see it just here. And I need to pull it out without losing it. So I'm just gonna rotate it slightly, like so. And one of these long pliers is probably the best for this. So let me see if I can. Yep, there it is. That is the clip. And now should be able to just slide the lever off. Just leave that as this. And there we go. Okay, so here we have the gear changer module, and I noticed a couple of videos where people really struggle with mounting this clip when putting everything back together. So how do you do this correctly? You put this plastic piece from this side through this rubber, and then you just simply put the clip on the plastic, like so. Now when you push that gearbox lever through here, it will lock. There's no need to fiddle around with this clip. On this model, everything is glued together. There are no screws, so we're gonna need to cut this open. Then we can use the screws to put everything back together again. So I think I'm just gonna use this I don't know, carpet knife we call it, and just slowly cut away. Just press it ever so slightly, and a bit more, maybe like this. Yep. Oh, this is actually cool. There you go. No need to apply heat. Just very carefully apply some pressure and work the knife. Be careful not to cut yourself. These knives are very sharp. And don't use too much force, just work your way, and there you go. I don't know what kind of glue this is, but probably it gave good sense. It made sense back in 2003 maybe, when this was assembled. I think the screws would be much better. Now we will need to put this from parked to somewhere in the middle, neutral maybe, and it should, oh no, we're missing a very important part here. We need to open this because there's a connector inside, and you need to disconnect a couple of wires like so. Let's open it. See what we can find. So this connector is for the side movement, gear down and gear up. And the other connector, this one is for, this is actually the solenoid that opens. This is the solenoid that's supposed to make it possible to move from parked. Yep. Press here. Now we can move. And look, can't go from neutral to past neutral. This was exactly what happened to me. So here's what really happened to me 2 times. And this is the reason for taking all this apart. So it's now in park. And to release park, this solenoid activates. It's electrically activated. It magnetizes and pushes this pin, which controls this lock. And now I can move from park to drive. So far so good. I can now move to neutral, and normally I can put it back in park. Right, nothing is locked again. Push the solenoid. Now we're in drive. Now, if I push the solenoid, now we're in drive. I can go to neutral, but I can't get past neutral. Can't get to reverse. So there are 2 options here. Either option 1 is that something is wrong with the electronics, so the solenoid is activated all the time. And option 2 is that it's not activated, but it can't move freely, so it's kind of activated. Okay, so let's just remove the electronic board first. So Torx 20. Okay. Let's take this apart. First we will remove the solenoid. Torx 20. Here's the solenoid, and this should move completely freely. It does. probably okay, this one. So take this clip out, like this, and this plastic. And now we can see. And this is the root cause of the problem. The locking mechanism on the bottom is rusted, so it can't move freely. To access it, I have to remove everything. And then it's just a matter of cleaning up and putting everything back together. That should fix the problem. On the front end of the gear selector, there's a screw that we need to remove. And on the back side, there's a spring clip, small spring clip that we need to remove. And on the side, there's also a spring clip, just to remove it. A flat screwdriver is good for removing the spring clips. The pin was really stuck, so I used an adjustable plier to just push it out and get it going. And then you just pull out the pin along with the bushing, plastic bushing that sits on the pin. It's very tightly fitted, so it was difficult to get out. And then remove the other pin that's holding everything in place. And then you can remove the gear selector. And you also need to remove the front spring for the locking mechanism. And then there's a roller spring. You can take that out also. Okay, so the trick here to remove this element is just pushing up through the middle here, underneath. And it will come out like this. See, that is not good. Completely rusted. This is moving, but this is completely stuck. Okay, so we'll just clean out everything and then put everything back together. Okay, so everything has been cleaned. It's new, no rust, no nothing. And this bit was really rusty. It's as good as new. All the parts are wiped and cleaned, and I also managed to find some new foam with glue on the backside. So I cut it out roughly as should be. This is also as good as new. And everywhere I'm gonna put grease now. I use this PTFE grease, which is safe for plastic and metal parts. Pretty normal for this kind of usage. So I just kind of spray a bit on a paper. I use a cotton swab and put it in where there are moving parts, and that's it. There you go. Perfect. Okay, so just press this in. And now it moves completely freely. This was really the problem. It couldn't move because of rust and moisture. Putting everything back together is just a reversal of taking everything apart. And notice there are now screws holding the cover to the bottom plate. Before it was glued. I'm gonna put some silicone grease on the bottom gasket on this unit before installing it back into the car. It's just to get a perfect seal so it will be watertight. Putting the gear selector back into the car is very straightforward, especially when you have put the clip back on the plastic bushing. It simply snaps into place and there's no fiddling around with the clip. And again, to put everything back together is just the opposite of taking everything apart. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you find my story helpful if you ever run into a similar fault. Thank you.